It's a miracle what can happen when Max Simpson isn't here. We're starting on time. Would you believe it? We're starting on time on this Monday. Welcome into the PHNX Rising podcast. I'm Owen Evans. Again, as I said, no Max today. We've gone for an upgrade here.
Oh, I was going to say downgrade, Owen, but you're very kind.
No, I'm going with the upgrade. We got Joe Lowery alongside. We got a lot to talk about today.
Let's do it.
It's a busy week. And I know I'm not going to be sleeping. You might be sleeping.
I'm going to be sleeping a little bit.
A little bit. But there's a lot going on this week, of course. Rising coming off of their win over Miami FC, the Miami FC, on the weekend. They're up against Seattle Sounders on Wednesday in the Open Cup last 16. But let's start with the weekend. Let's go through what we saw from Phoenix Rising in that game against Miami FC. And Joe, I'm just going to leave the floor up to you initially.
Okay.
Take me through. Big picture, what are your big takeaways?
All right, so the big picture coming into the game was always, would Phoenix Rising put in the level of performance that you would expect them to put in against the worst team in the Eastern Conference, one of the absolute worst teams in the USL Championship, El Paso Locomotive, making a play for that spot, a couple other teams as well.
Wait, you mean to tell me Miami aren't good?
No, they're not. And everybody knew that coming in, right? They have one returning player on their roster from all of last season. Another returner who was just randomly subbed into a game earlier on this year that's not listed on their squad. Sort of gives you a little bit of an idea of the state of the Miami FC over in the Eastern Conference. Not a good team. And everybody knew that coming into Saturday's match. So the question was, can Rising take care of business? Like, it was a more obvious question than most games that Rising will have and have had already this season. And the answer was yes. Like, they were the dominant team in the first half. They were the better team over the course of the match. The second half, the intensity dialed down several notches, which I think is frankly fine ahead of a double game week. I got no problem with that whatsoever. But that was the question, and Rising passed the test on that evening.
They did. Well, let's have a quick listen, actually. We'll turn it over to Danny Stone and what his overall thoughts were after that game.
Obviously very, very happy with I think, a deserved 3 points. I think the performance of the team tonight was a good one, and we scored a couple of good goals in the first half. We're able to manage the second half a little bit more, while staying on the front foot, I think, as well. But I'm very, very pleased with overall the performance, and I think it was a good display at home. I think a good dominant performance in a game, and like I said, I felt we dominated the game, but we controlled the game well, and that was needed for tonight.
Yeah, when he says they controlled the game, I mean, you just look at it overall. Miami FC never felt in that match whatsoever, did they? Obviously, there was the one disallowed goal in the first half, but from that point onwards, did you ever? I mean, there was nothing there. They were offering, right?
We talked a little bit before we sat down to start today. Sort of compared it a little bit to the Colorado Springs game, which is a team that is very, very defensive. Rising ended up with 70-something% possession. They dominated. They dominated the chances. They dominated the ball as well, and where the game was being played, which is what this team wants to do, right? And this is where it gets a little challenging, right? Because we're always so tempted to draw these massive, like, macro takeaways from every individual game, because that's kind of what we're here to do. At the same time, there is not a ton narratively that we can take away from beating the Miami FC 2-0 at 38th in Washington. Like, it's just not possible. We can talk about the tactical stuff and a couple of the changes that we saw in the second half. We can talk about individual players. All that good stuff is well and good. The challenge is when, we start to try and build like concrete season-long narratives or even part season narratives out of a game like that against a team that, frankly, is just no good.
Yeah. I will say, if we look at one player who we've often, criticized and maybe just, I think there were higher expectations for him than we've ever really seen him put in a Phoenix Rising shirt. But Fede Varela had a pretty decent game.
Yeah.
It felt as though it was one of those games that suited him more than anything, right? Sometimes when they're particularly high intensity games and he's not given the time to work things through, he doesn't always find ways to get involved in the play in the way that you'd like, and can sometimes be a little bit anonymous out there. But of course, it just felt like he had a better game, and the finish caps it off as well.
No, I completely agree, and shout out to Remi Cabral for all the hard work on that finish. It's not the most difficult of strikes from Fede Varela. But no, Owen, I completely agree with you on all of that. I think I saw Ryan Sikora say this. I thought this was Fede Varela's best game in the Phoenix Rising shirt that we've seen. Like, the expectations were high coming over from Europe and his pedigree. And you watch him play, and the skill is obvious, right? Like, you don't have to watch him for more than a few seconds at a time to see how much quality he has on the ball, how good he is in tight spots, his vision. Like, all of the pieces on the ball are there. And it was great that we saw it play out against Miami. The difference in my mind, until we see more of these games from Fede Varela against better teams, is that the tempo of the game against Miami did not have to be at 100%. It could be at 90% or 85%. Rising had no trouble building through the intermittent pressure that Miami threw at them. They had no trouble finding space for Varela initially in the left half space. In the second half, I saw it more from Danny Stone, and I haven't had a chance to talk with Danny about this, but as like a 3-diamond 3, where all of a sudden it was Jose Andres Hernandez and Panos as the two number 8s in front of Renzo Zambrano, and then it was Fede Varela as the lone number 10, which is not a look that we've seen very often from Phoenix. We've never seen under Danny Stone that 3-diamond 3 look, if that's indeed how he would classify it. So a lot of things fell Fede's way, and credit to him, right? He took advantage of those opportunities. The question is, can he do it against basically anybody else in the USL Championship or on Wednesday, the Seattle Sounders of Major League Soccer? We don't have that evidence yet.
Yeah, we don't. But one other thing I think that was quite interesting from this game, and we got it from all the post-game interviews, they're saying it was planned all along. Of course, you see Rising's best opportunities come. How do they come? They come because they're pressing. They're pressing high up the field. They knew they could have some success against Miami FC in doing so. And again, that first half, we saw that, especially the first goal comes simply because you're putting pressure on the goalkeeper. Remi's done it a few times earlier in that game. He does it again. And eventually, someone's going to make a mistake. Yeah. Just seeing that way and seeing the way that they adapted to that game. I know, look, if we go back a long way here, Joe, and obviously the first time that you were covering this team early doors, I can see you smiling already because you know exactly where I'm going to go with this. But of course, you had a certain former Phoenix Rising manager who very much, you knew that he was going to do the same thing every single game. Maybe just as one of the few takeaways you take out of it is that Danny, and we've seen it in some of the other games as well, is more willing and just open to adapting that game plan and doing things a little bit differently, depending on who the opponent is, depending on maybe what the playing surface is in some cases.
100%. Well. Yeah, I think that's an entirely fair takeaway from the game where at this point in the season, we've seen a few different looks from Phoenix, right? Even just in terms of the positioning. The default look has been, and I imagine will continue to be, that flat 3-4-3, right? The 3 center backs, the double pivot, the 2 10s, the wide wing backs, and the number 9, right? We've seen that look in the vast majority of the game so far. We've also seen that 4-2-3-1. We saw it for 2 games. It's a look that Danny is willing to go to. And now we see a little bit of a tweak with the in possession positioning in the second half with that diamond shape in midfield that I saw on Saturday, but also the stuff off the ball, right? And this is an area where, I'll be honest, I don't really understand why Rising haven't been more aggressive against the ball in 2024. I can think of a few reasons why. Jose Andres Hernandez is not the most fleet of foot option in central midfield, and he's not super physically imposing. I get that. Giulio Doratiotto, different story. His ability to read the game maybe is not at that same level, but physicality is not a problem in his game. And another issue with the press has been Fede Varela, in that he is frankly quite slow and athletically limited at this stage of his career after different injuries, and it was never the most fleet of foot guy to begin with. Those are problems, but a lot of me, more than just part of me, thinks that with Remi Cabral, and we saw his work rate on Saturday, with Panos Armenakas, who covers a ton of ground in the half spaces and really all over the midfield, with the wingbacks, Azokar is maybe not the best presser, but Rito has a ton of energy, Azokar does on the left as well. And then the center backs, like Stenberg is not quick, but he is physically strong and has real athleticism around him in Lawrence White, typically on the right, and Mo Traore on the left, whether it's Pop Marboy back in the lineup, Ale Fuenmayor. Like, center back is not a problem for this team. I think you have the pieces, and Rocco, who likes to sweep in behind, to be a more aggressive pressing team than what we've seen. And I frankly don't understand why it's taken all the way until Saturday against the worst team in the Eastern Conference for us to see more of that. At the same time, I'm encouraged that we did see it, but I have questions about how aggressive this team will be against the ball as the year goes on.
You mentioned Jose Andres Hernandez in there, and that segues nicely into my next point on this one, which is that we've seen criticism at times of that midfield pairing, right? Renzo Zambrano, Jose Andres Hernandez. I know we've spoken about it a lot on this pod. We've been talking about how you put those two together, and sometimes it's just not enough maybe forward thinking in that midfield. They tend to get quite bogged down looking sideways, looking backwards, slowing the play down, which isn't a bad thing, but sometimes it can be too much. How do you think they performed on the weekend?
I thought Renzo Zambrano was sharp, especially in the second half. I thought he adapted quite well to that single pivot role and build up and did a good job of taking advantage of space on the ball. And I actually thought it was one of Jose Andres Hernandez's better games overall. It's funny because I talked about Fede Varela and Hernandez being lightweights against the ball, and they are, right? Like, I think that's still absolutely true. It was funny to me, and speaks well of them, but also poorly of Miami FC, that in the first 30, 45 minutes of that game, Jose Andres Hernandez wins the ball a couple of times, like muscling dudes off the ball for Miami, and Fede Varela is everywhere. Like, he looked up for it, and Miami looked poor, as we would expect. So you have those elements as well. But Owen, I thought in general it was a good game for the double pivot, with the caveat saying that it would be very difficult for them not to have a good game in that space. I was hoping that we would see Giulio Doratiotto, 2 goals recently. I like the idea of him getting pretty easy minutes against a team like Miami, where I don't think he would be in positions to hugely negative impact a super important game. But credit to Jose Andres Hernandez, who I thought was quite good next to Renzo Zambrano, who's always sort of at like a 6.5 or a 7 out of 10.
Shout out to the chat, by the way. We got people in there commenting. Michael with Fede Varela, what a player, who doubted him. Who could have ever doubted him? Well,
and certainly you never doubted him.
Never. No, couldn't have possibly done that. And shout out to everyone else in there as well. Devin Z.
Everyone with eyes the last year and a half.
Yeah, it's everyone having a good time in the chat. Make sure to join as well on this next question, which I'm going to put to Joe now. This one's a little bit bigger, right? And I'm intrigued what you think on this. You brought up the fullbacks, or the wingbacks, however you want to put them, right? Just thinking about those combinations, all the different ways that you could put them out there, whether you put Azakar, Rito, Torres. I mean, there are so many ways you could go. I mean, you can play Gallardo in that role if you want, right? At this point, do you see almost any kind of emergence of who in your mind right now is the 2 players that you want to see starting most games?
Yeah, I think it's gone all the way around from the start of the season, where at the beginning it's Azakar on the left and Rito on the right. There's some experimentation. Gabi Torres gets some run. Really, even though there was some deviation early on, I think that was pretty clearly the plan all along from Phoenix, both from Danny Stone and from the front office. You go out there and get Rito and Azakar, and you make a pretty big deal about bringing them into the club. You expect them to play a big role. And then we get Gabi Torres, we get a little bit of Gallardo, we get the back 4, and things change, and there's 4 center backs on the field at the same time, 5 center backs on the field at the same time. There have been lots of different ways to get there, but I think Rising have ultimately circled back to Rito being the first choice guy on the right, Juan Carlos Azakar being the first choice guy on the left, and that is, I think, my preferred duo as well for this Rising team. Rito with his straight line speed. In the very first game that I did for this team, along with Killian on the TV broadcast this year, the combination play between Panos and Edgardo Rito on the right side was filthy. Like, it gave me the belief that side could be the most dominant wide attacking pairing in the USL Championship. And I'm truly not attempting to be hyperbolic. We just haven't seen enough of that. And part of that's because Rito's been in and out of the lineup a little bit, and same sort of goes with Panos as you're in this heavy stretch of the schedule. And so I understand that. But Rito, with his speed and ability to get in behind, we saw it pay off in a goal. It won't always do that, but the potential is always there. Azakar on the left, man, it feels like he's growing into games more and more. He gets that goal in the Open Cup. He is super involved in the game against Miami, doing stepovers on the left side of the box. His presence as this inverted left wing back, where he likes to cut inside on the right, allows for all sorts of fun, unique spacing and actions on the left side in possession. I think those 2 are just straight up the most talented wing backs that are in the squad, and that's no offense to Gabi Torres or potentially Erickson Gallardo, but I'm not really sure how close it is either.
Now, there's obviously pace there. Do you think this team is using enough pace in general?
Yes. Ultimately, I would say yes. It's not been the foremost strength of this team, but think about the balance, right? In possession, Rising typically in this 3-2-5 shape, right? The 3-4-3 becomes a 3-2-5 as the wingbacks push up and bing, bang, boom, you're there, right? In that front 5, let's think about the first choice front 5, or maybe just the one we saw on Saturday, right? So it's a Gardner Rito all the way wide on the right. It's Panos Armenakas in the half space. It's Remi Cabral through the middle as the 9. It's Fede Varela in the left half space, and it's Juan Carlos Azocar on the left. You can certainly say with confidence that the right side has a bit more athleticism than the left. There's no doubt about that. But I would classify Rito as a real vertical threat. I would classify Remi Cabral as a real vertical threat. His goals, he made his money last year in MLS Next Pro, slashing in behind. Like that's his game. He's still not a ball to feet kind of striker. He's better moving and beyond. Azocar, I think, has it in him to stretch the line as well, or at least to be a change of rhythm, change of pace kind of player. And Armenakas, I think, has far more ability to cover ground and to knife in behind than probably anybody gives him credit for. So I think the pace is there. I don't think the balance has been perfect across the board. But I think the quality and the ability to go and stretch the line is there, especially as Giulio grows and maybe becomes the first choice guy next to Renzo Zambrano. Like all of a sudden you're getting that little bit extra in terms of box arrival out of midfield. And I think then you're sort of cooking with gas.
Yeah. Well, the real question here, though, I think, and this is got to be the big takeaway from this last game. How many Messi shirts did you see there?
I couldn't know where you were going with that.
And I tell you what, actually, have we got the official count, though, from the Lackey? Just give us a shout. 32, and he gave up at that point. Remember when the over-under was set at 6.5, and I said it should have been a lot higher than that.
Yeah, well played to you, Owen, because you were smashing the over on that,
yeah.
and you should. I was there early, as all of us are for these games, and there was a steadier stream than normal because they're always there, right? Like, if you're going to a game as a general soccer fan in the Valley of the Sun, and you don't have a huge attachment to Rising, but you're going for a fun Saturday, there's a pretty good chance you're going to be in a Messi shirt. That chance is better than good on Saturday.
I get it when it's little kids. It's when you go there and just see like collections of adults wearing these messages, and you're just like, surely you guys know that he's not playing here today, right?
The difference there, Owen, is surely they don't know. We did have that. We had a guy behind us when we were at the North End who just what was the quote? It was something like, when are they bringing Messi out? And it's just like, no, this is Miami FC, the Miami FC. Yeah, it's the Messi should be playing for the Miami. No, yeah, it didn't work out.
To be fair, that would be quite funny.
We're talking
that would be much more compelling television, I think.
In that he would have 6 goal contributions every single game. I would watch the ever living crap out of that.
Oh yeah. And they'd finally be able to get those Miami FC attendance figures up a little bit.
That would do it.
I mean, we're not gonna go through the official numbers and what they really are, but I'll just say that visually from last season, having gone there, I found quite a discrepancy, and the official numbers weren't particularly high either.
Seems possible.
So yeah, big cavernous stadium and not very many people there. But yeah, all those people swinging by thinking maybe they were going to see Messi. You know, I'm just saying maybe they were on the OGs. Maybe they were.
It's possible.
It's possible. You know, OGs have launched 2 new products now. They got live rosin. They got the RSO, the Rick Simpson oil. It means they've got the OGs Naturals and the big OGs. OGs Naturals. They're vegan gummies made with live rosin, available in a sweet clementine flavor. Meanwhile, the big OGs gummy is a mega version of their Pegs RSO. It's a raspberry orange RSO. Actually, as well. One of the company's most popular products is perforated into 10 slices, each with 10 milligrams of THC for a total of 100 milligrams of THC. Rumor has it that Max may have acquired the big OGs, and that's why he's not with us here today.
I'm just going to say this.
He's having a good time.
I can't deny that that's true.
We can't deny. We can't confirm nor deny, but people are talking. People are talking.
And by people, Owen means Owen and me, but we're people, so
absolutely. But I know that Max enjoys his OGs. It's always a good time. And to learn more about OG's gummies and where you can find them, you can head over to ogsbrands.com. It's OGEEZbrands.com, and of course, you must be 21 or older to enjoy responsibly. And you know, I'm not going to do what Max did on the weekend and kind of play this off in the most awkward way possible, whereby he went from OGs to talking about filling up the car with gas, which, of course, you know, always drive sober, everyone. But, you know, before you go to the dispensary to pick up OGs, you might want to go fill up your car with gas. And, of course, you're going to save money if you fill up the car with gas by downloading signing up for the Inner Circle program with Circle K.
I want to be in the inner circle.
Are you in the inner circle?
I'm not, but I feel like I should be.
You should be.
I'm feeling FOMO right now, Owen.
Joe,
tell me
you're
more.
You're missing out. You saved 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. Did you know? That's money. That's money right there. You know what that does?
It's money.
That saves you money.
Wow.
That
Dude,
helps
this
you.
guy's
That
good.
helps you. I know.
This guy's
I know.
really,
we're
really
doing
good.
really well on this. But like, you save that money, you could do things like you're not going to Seattle this weekend, are you?
No, but I could be
midweek. You could
basically
be
road trip
you
for
could
free.
Be.
It sounds like I
If
could
you
basically get there
saved
for free.
money on that gas.
Yeah, it's a missed opportunity.
And they also have all deals on snacks as well. All other kind of good stuff. Polar Pops, of course. Did you know that if you're an Inner Circle member, you can get any size Polar Pop or Frosted for just 69 cents now through September 3rd?
I know it now.
You know it now. 79 cents if you're not a member. See? Savings.
I love
savings. They're kicking in. Of course. Of course, you can find that in the app under Inner Circle and offers. And of course, if, like Joe, you aren't part of the Inner Circle, but you want to be, you can join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Of course, terms and conditions apply.
Do it.
Participating locations and visit circlek.com for details. I think we're doing fine with that, Max.
I'm pulling
here,
it
to be
up.
honest.
I'm pulling it up on my phone right
His
now.
phone's currently charging because he doesn't have any power.
But just
by the
pretend. You gotta
way.
pretend.
Dude,
Dude, you gotta pretend.
do we?
You don't give me the ad copy. I can only give you so much.
I know.
All right.
I don't give him the ad copies. There's so much he can do. But you know what we can do? We can talk about Wednesday's game.
Let's do it.
There we go. Now we're getting into it. Right. Well, let's start this from a Phoenix Rising perspective. And we'll have a listen now, of course. This is a nice little, I guess, way of moving from our last topic, which is the Miami game on the weekend, into what we're expecting to see on Wednesday. And we can talk about those subs and the timings of them and the choices made behind them. In terms of getting people some rest. And we do have some words from Danny on that when I asked him if he was making those subs with that in mind.
Yeah, always some of it. I mean, when we have 3 games in a week, then of course that rotation of players becomes important. And there were a couple of players that we just felt needed a few more minutes rest tonight, not specifically in preparation for Wednesday. But just to manage their bodies over the course of a week, and also very good subs coming off the bench again, and players who we know can affect the game. So honestly, the rotations in the game tonight, not specific towards Wednesday, just more kind of what we felt was correct for the game this evening, and to make sure that we continue to manage tonight's game and everybody through 3 games this week.
Yeah. So. Look, it's always an awkward one when you have this kind of a 3-game, like 8-day stretch, right? We saw this the last time there was a cup game, especially when 2 of those games are on the road, and it makes it a very long week. It makes it very awkward in terms of just, look, it's not fun to be living out of a hotel for nights on end.
Oh, no?
No, it's it can be quite tiring, funnily enough, there, especially when there's all those trips out to the Eastern time zone, because, if there's anything that Rising didn't have enough of already planned, it was lengthy away trips.
That's correct.
But I think we saw that last time in terms of just by the time the Detroit game came around, there were players that had either picked up knocks or just didn't really have a whole lot left in the tank, to be honest. And that's why you see moments like Ryan Flood starting up top. Obviously,
Fladinho. That's Fladinho.
Fladinho. Okay. Obviously, the Darish from Ella absence at the moment plays into that. The official word on that is that he will be returning and linking up with the squad soon. That's as far as the official talk is on that one. But overall, I mean, it felt like there are a couple of tweaks that I could see potentially being made from that last game on the weekend, but from Rising's perspective, it felt like they put a lot of first choice players out there on the weekend that, if this game, especially if it goes the distance in Seattle, they're going to be quite a few tired legs come the end of that game.
Yeah, it's kind of a no-win situation, right? Where if you ease off the lineup and you do struggle a little bit, even if you pick up 3 points, but you struggle a little bit at home against Miami, that doesn't look good from an outside-in perspective. It also doesn't feel good from an inside-out perspective. So I feel for Danny Stone because I think he was sort of in this lose-lose situation. At the same time, I was a little surprised that more subs didn't come earlier in this game. With all that said, the squad's deep enough, and this is the kind of game on Wednesday that you have to get up for, right? So this is the kind of game that you devote more resources to, and even if that means you suffer a little bit on the back end away from home, I don't really blame the coaching staff for going, if you're thinking about how you allocate resources across these 3 games, 1 at home in the league, 1 away against an MLS team in the cup, and 1 away in the league. If you were just blanket looking at where you expect to pick up points there or where you could do something, I think obviously the first game against Miami at home is one that you would expect and need to pick up 3 points. It's understandable to allocate some resources there. You want to give a lot of energy for the Wednesday game and hope that you can do something chaotic. And then on the away game, you don't have a ton of obvious expectations against a very good team in the Eastern Conference in Indy 11 right now who are picking up a lot of results. So again, feel for Stone a little bit. Not an easy choice. A little surprised that we didn't see more changes in the second half, but I don't really imagine that changing a ton for Wednesday.
At the same time, there are some players we know that can come in a bit fresher. Maybe there's a choice to play Remi Cabral coming up on Wednesday. It's a possibility. Didn't get too many minutes on Saturday, but again, we know what he can do in those big matches. Sometimes if you get him in positions where he can take those shots from distance, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Many times we've seen them where they don't, but we'll always remember the times when they did.
That's the perfect encapsulation of Emil Cuellar's game. I'll be honest, I'm not especially high on his game, but you're not wrong. There seems to be something about those big moments that does change the calculus for Cuellar a little bit. I would veer pretty far away from starting him against Seattle.
Okay.
But at the same time, what is Emil Cuellar's best thing other than scoring the occasional long-range banger between sending shots to Rosie, which, again, that's part of it. I understand that. It's his work rate. Like, the dude covers every blade of grass. He works so hard. He is a ball winner even in the attacking midfield spot. He does not take prisoners as he goes to cover ground. So, maybe against Seattle, if you're okay to sit off a little bit at Starfire and say, hey, we're going to absorb a little bit more and we want to press intermittently, Cuellar is a guy that can basically help lead that press, even from playing underneath the 9, who I think we all assume will be Remi Cabral. So I'm not totally against that idea. I just think on balance, Cuellar is probably not the guy I'd go with.
Okay. Giulio Doratiotto, again, someone who, we've spoken about him already today. Someone who's definitely, I think, has taken a step up in the last few weeks. Again, didn't get very many minutes. There's a possibility maybe you put him in there alongside maybe Renzo Zambrano in the midfield.
Yeah.
And of course, you're also going to have to look at making a change at the back because, of course, Lawrence White is not going to be available for selection in this game because of his red card against North Carolina. He's going to be suspended for this one. So you're going to have to find a way of changing things up at the back somehow, possibly bring Alejandro Fuenmayor back in.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Owen, can you pull up the subs and the timing of the subs from Saturday? Because I don't remember all the specific minutes that we saw. Sort of setting some of that aside, though, at least in the meantime, I think Remi Cabral is the obvious starter up top. I think you go back to the well with Panos Armenakas in the right half space. I would probably lean towards bringing Varela back into the lineup again for this game after his performance the other night. And I would keep a lot of continuity. Frankly, Wyke is an obvious one that has to be changed. I'd be tempted to shift Pop Marboy back into the starting lineup because of his defensive ability, and there will be quality from Seattle, even as I would really, really expect Brian Schmetzer to roll out a somewhat rotated lineup. At the same time, they've been struggling in league play. Maybe this is an area where he sees as something that they can use to help save their season. But I would expect that right center back spot to either be Fuenmayor or Pop Marboy. I'm tempted by Pop Marboy. And maybe you give Giulio Doratiotto the start in central midfield. I would be a little surprised if he gets the start over Hernandez and Zambrano, just because it's your first game against an MLS team. It is a step up, at least in terms of some of the players that are going to be on the field. And Giulio's still a youngster, right? Just turned 20 years old. So I will be thrilled if he gets the start. And I think that says something about where Danny Stone and his coaching staff think Giulio is. But I don't know. You got it up now. So when were the subs made? Sure. Who got a little bit of that breather in the second half?
So both Rito and Azekar come off at around about the 65th minute.
Which I think is telling.
Okay,
frankly.
which is telling. I think those two are going to likely start. Torres and Gallardo coming on for them. At the same rough time, you have Stenberg coming off. Alejandro Fuenmayor goes in.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, I think all three of those players who are
I
taking
would
off
expect them to start, certainly.
I'm expecting them to put a shift in. Fede Varela comes off at about the 77th minute of Remi Cuellar.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's resting him for that or whether it was you'd probably possibly seen about all you were going to get out of him on the night as well. And then you see Panos coming off in the 86th minute for Giulio to come on in.
Right.
So, to me, that's where maybe, and I know you say maybe you stick with that same midfield pairing, but they both put 90 minutes in.
Yeah, no, it's true.
So,
it's true.
Maybe you do
I
make
don't
a change.
see, to be clear, I don't see a huge difference at the moment in quality, even though their games are very different between Giulio and Jose Andres. I don't think there's a massive drop-off from one player to the other. Their skill sets are so different that you can use them for different moments. And there is an element where Giulio Doratiotto's skill set might fit this game a bit better, where Seattle will have stretches of the ball. Phoenix will as well. They're not going to just come in and bunker. That's not their MO. But having Doratiotto's ability to cover ground and impose himself on the game defensively, I think could be really valuable. The question is just how much does the coaching staff trust him? And I don't think we've got a great feel for that right now.
No, it's true. It's true. I think the one that worries me a little bit, but it's also a problem that we knew this team was going to have, just because of the nature of Darius Formella not being here, is, of course, Remi Cabral putting up 90 minutes on the weekend. And if needed, realistically, you need him to go 120 on Wednesday, if it goes that far, because you don't really have a whole lot of options right now, especially not that you'd want in a knockout game that means a lot to this team. Should they, now don't get me wrong, if this goes horribly wrong, Seattle take it very seriously and Rising put in a fairly poor performance, sure, at some point you can throw in the towel and take him off and say we're thinking about the weekend now. Yeah. But if this is a close game and a hard-fought game, you don't really want to take him off right now, do you?
No. And I think the nice thing about Remi Cabral's game is that, first of all, when you're number 9, you're oftentimes not putting in the same shift in terms of mileage as some of the players deeper downfield. And Cabral's an athletic guy. Like, he is somebody who can stretch the line. He's somebody who does have good speed. Oh, I would imagine, I don't know what the physical data that the club's collecting, but I would imagine he does very well with a lot of those training in terms of high-speed runs and things of that nature. So I think if you had to have a number 9 be really the only guy left in his position while Formella's been away and not available for these games, Cabral as a profile, given what he brings, his age, his style of play, his position, all of that stuff is like maybe the least of all the potential evils that you could have. But point taken, Owen, like, it's not a great situation for Rising, and I'm certain it's not one that Danny Stone's in love with right now.
No. Here's the one, though, and this is probably the one position that we don't usually debate. But knowing the way that these cup games go and the fact that people do sometimes turn to the backup goalkeepers. Yep, you know exactly where I'm going with this.
That's what Phoenix did in the first round.
It was Rakowski who got the start.
Yeah.
Do you play Rakowski or do you play Rios Novo? Because I know what my view on this one is.
Well, go.
It's got to be Rios Novo.
Okay, go on.
You're in a position whereby you have to accept the fact that, A, this is a game that could go to penalties.
Yeah.
Okay? Who is your best penalty-saving goalkeeper? Yeah. We know who it is. Everyone knows who it is.
Yeah,
it's not even close.
Right?
Yeah. So you're in a position there where you have to either think then, okay, down the line, are we either going to accept that we could have one of the biggest penalty shootouts that this club has ever had, and not have your best guy in there, or you've got to think about how you're going to sub him in there at some point, which also comes along with its own problems, right? It's not ideal, really, to be subbing a goalkeeper.
You don't want to burn that sub,
and you don't want to burn one if you don't have to, especially knowing it's a busy week. Just broadly speaking as well, I think, look, Rakowski brings, I mean, he didn't have a bad game necessarily against North Carolina, but it's also worth remembering the fact that a lot of sometimes what Rising likes to do, if they choose to possess the ball, especially in the back, you need that presence of Rocco Rios-Novo. You need the way that he is comfortable with the ball at his feet to help you with the numbers back. That it does fundamentally change how you're able to play out of the back if you don't have someone who is as comfortable with the ball as he is.
Yeah, no, agreed. If the argument is just which goalkeeper is better, which is sort of where you got to there, Owen, and I agree with everything you just said. It doesn't take that much arguing to land on Rocco Rios-Novo being the guy.
Do you need to, especially knowing that goalkeepers, in a lot of ways, it's just something that's so different to an outfield player.
It's a different sport. They're playing a different sport.
Right. Yeah. Do they really need rest in the same way that an outfield player does in this moment?
I understand the concept of cup keepers, right, where you get this rotation because these guys don't really play otherwise, and it's a good little change in rhythm, I think, for the group and helps ignite a little more competition inside what can be often a very stale position group in training. I understand all of that. I agree with literally everything you said, and I would do the exact same thing as to what you just described. Rocco Rios-Novo is the best goalkeeper that's on this team. The penalty angle is a very, very good one. I thought Rakowski was good against North Carolina. I thought he acquitted himself quite well. He is not the number 1 on this team. You're up against the first and potentially only MLS team you might play all year. In a meaningful competition, it's a chance to make a statement for these players. Let's not kid ourselves. Rocco Rios-Novo is a guy who still has real ambition to be doing this at the highest level of the game, and that means he's not probably going to be in Phoenix forever. This is a good opportunity for him, if nothing else. It's against a team that has probably seen bits of his tape before with Atlanta and things of that nature. So, yeah, I think the idea of starting Rocco is the correct one for this game.
Yeah. And then, if we look, one last thing on Phoenix before we start to take a little bit look more at Seattle in this one. That field stuff, right? It's known for being a little bit on the smaller side. It's, of course, a turf surface. If that turf gets wet, it's going to move around quite a bit quicker. How do you see that impacting how Rising are going to have to play in this game and how they're going to have to approach this game and how they might have to adapt to that?
Well, in some ways, I think it suits them a little bit more than Seattle, in that Seattle have on talent, and it's a little difficult to say who's going to play for Brian Schmetzer, but on talent, they obviously have the better players. That's not a hot take. Rising, though, with how they want to play, they are noticeably more committed to short, controlled passing and build-up than the Sounders are under Brian Schmetzer. So Phoenix going in and saying, hey, we don't need to change everything about what we do for Seattle. Like, we believe in what we do. We believe that we have a number of players who are good enough to be at this level and to do well at this MLS level. Like, let's go and at least for stretches, if not the whole game, let's go impose ourselves. And so if the ball is moving quickly on that surface, which is possible, and even with some of the space constraints, in a way that favors a guy like Fede Varela, who athletically is challenged, as we've discussed, but has technical quality, I think for Phoenix, that could end up being an asset. I'm not sure it's going to be something that we notice as you're watching this game. Maybe the field size, less so probably how the ball is moving, but it's not a bad thing to keep like a quarter of an eye on.
There we go. But let's have a look, though. I mean, you mentioned we don't know exactly what kind of a team Seattle are going to put out there. We're going to have a look at the lineup that they put out against Louisville, and it is a heavily rotated lineup, right? Andrew Thomas in goal, I think likely to see him probably again. You've got Cody Baker, John Bell, Stuart Hawkins, Alex Roldan, Dylan Tevez, Danny Leva, Josh Atencio, Paul Rothrock, Danny Masovsky, of course, that one familiar to Rising fans. And of course, I'm going to let you have a punt at this one.
We agreed in the pre-show we were going with Georgie. That's
okay, there we
Georgie.
go. There we go. Okay,
please and thank
that's
you.
what we're going with. Right. How many of these guys can you actually comment a huge amount on, Joe? Come on. You're the big MLS guy here.
Yeah,
okay?
sure. I mean, Andrew Thomas is a very, very good goalkeeper. Is the backup to Stephen Fry in Seattle, but is somebody who I think they very much believe will be their number one once Stephen Fry leaves. Has a future at the MLS level. There's no doubt about that. It's a second choice group outside of a guy like Alex Roldan. Josh Atencio is not really a first choice guy at this point for Brian Schmetzer, but has been in the past. Danny Musovsky is not the first choice, number 9. Georgie has made a nice impression, both in the Open Cup and during his limited minutes in MLS. He is sort of this direct, wide threat, really, for Brian Schmetzer. But this is, by and large, outside of Roldan, a completely second choice lineup that Brian Schmetzer rolled out in the Open Cup. The big question for Phoenix is, like, how committed are Seattle for this game? If the Sounders are really committed, and you might get, I don't know, a Jordan Morris from the jump, or you might get a Christian Roldan or a João Paulo from the jump. You might get a Yaimar or like that changes the calculus a lot. If you're looking at that lineup, Owen, Rising have every chance against that lineup. Blue City had every chance against that lineup. They took them to 2-2. Like they sent that game deep and ended up losing in penalties. Like Louisville, a better team than Phoenix Rising in the USL Championship right now. There's no doubt about that in my mind whatsoever. But the gap is not massive for this Rising squad. They have every chance against that lineup. They have a chance against any version of Seattle. Like, there's quality in this Phoenix team. There's enough to squeeze a little bit out of this game. If Brian Schmetzer's thinking, hey, we drew 1-1 with Vancouver over the weekend, we lost Nuhu to a late red card, maybe he's going to start on the left side of the back line because he's not going to be available for the next MLS game. We've been losing players. We need something. Like, that's when it gets to be a more difficult task for Phoenix. And I think there's a real chance that Seattle do take this game more seriously than they took the first game that they played in the Open Cup against Louisville.
When you look, though, at just how many midweek games they've had, especially now, it's Saturday, Tuesday, Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday.
It's not great.
That's not ideal from Seattle.
No, I mean, you can't burn everybody. You absolutely can't burn everybody. And that's why I'm thinking, maybe you get one of Morris or Roldan, or potentially none of them. Like, if that's the lineup, it would not surprise me, right? Seattle, historically, Major League Soccer, have not shied away from slow starts in league play and almost always turn it on towards the end of the season as they make a couple moves in the summer transfer window, as they reshape and reshuffle a little bit tactically. So I don't know how much Brian Schmetzer cares about this game. I really don't know. I don't know how important it is to Seattle. But if you do get one or two of those players, the task gets more difficult. But your point is absolutely correct. MLS now, you're looking at double game weeks quite often, whether that's Open Cup or other matches as well, ahead of what's going to be a super busy summer. The Sounders have dealt with so many injury issues through the first almost third of the season in Major League Soccer. Like, they can't afford to go all in on everything. And judging by their first Open Cup game, they don't seem super inclined to go all in at this stage of the competition.
Well, that's where I'm intrigued, right? Because I know you said, look, they've had a slow start to the season. Yeah. Is this the point where you look at maybe, the Open Cup is something of almost it's okay, we have a good cup run and it gives you that positivity coming out of it. At the same time, it's May.
Yeah.
And knowing just how many teams make the postseason in general, right? And it doesn't take much in general to go on a run of a few weeks where you're picking up results and all of a sudden you go from feeling like, well, we're not going to do very much this year to, we're actually in with a chance of something and we're going to make a little bit of a run maybe come the end of the year. Yeah. I wonder if it's just too early to start turning that side. And I mean, again, the round of 16, maybe this is about the last stage where you can kind of get away with saying, oh, the Open Cup doesn't, because when you start adding the word final into rounds,
that's exactly what I was going to say, right? Like my gut says, if I had to place a wager on this, my gut says we see a very similar lineup to the one that we just saw on the screen. That's what my gut says. Do I think it's impossible that we get some of the star power from Seattle? Absolutely not. Do I think it's super likely that you get more than one of those guys who's the regular starters in addition to maybe a Roldan or a Nuhu, someone on the back line? No. Like, I think it will be a mostly reserve 11 with Brian Schmetzer potentially pulling a wild card out of his rabbit out of his hat, whatever it is. Because a lot of what you just said, you got to the quarterfinals and all of a sudden you're a quarterfinal win, a semifinal win, and a final win away. You're 3 games away from a trophy. Like, that's when the narrative, I think, really starts to shift internally at a lot of these MLS clubs who a lot of them just straight up don't care about the Open Cup. We saw MLS make it very clear that they don't care about the Open Cup earlier this year. So there are still questions about what's going to happen with Seattle's lineup. But, I mean, if you got to push me to one side of the fence or the other, it's going to be a pretty B-tier lineup from the Sounders.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is, I mean, to be clear, it's great news for Rising.
It is huge.
You know, you want the opportunity to go against the best, and odds are you're not going to face Seattle's best on Wednesday, but that's fine. Like, you're still a few games away from really like having everything on the line in the Open Cup that you want to go out there and show you can topple the Giants. Not every game has to be that.
Okay, so here's the question. I've put this to a few people. I've got my own opinion on this, and I will share it after I've asked you this. But just in terms of this team, Phoenix Rising now, where in club history does this game rank in terms of probably importance all time?
So this is the furthest Rising have ever been in the U.S. Open Cup. It's a really, really important moment. It's still, for me, certainly behind the finals they've been in the league. So that knocks them down a couple of spots. It's probably a rung lower than either of the lower than the Western Conference Finals as well.
Ooh, see, I'm not going that
so
way.
So you would say this is what would that be, the third most important game? In club history.
I'm putting the Drogba final up top.
Yeah,
just because of the sheer amount of attention that was getting, and then last year's final, and then probably this.
I mean, I don't know that that's wrong. If you're asking me generally what's more important, a chance to play in a final or a round of 16 game where you still need 3 games to go and play in a final?
Correct, but this is, again, it's also against an MLS team.
It's an MLS team. You don't get a lot of those cracks. So I am... I think I'll concede. I'll say this is probably the third most important game in club history. I don't know that it is miles ahead of those Western Conference Finals, but I'm willing to cede. Yeah, this is a really, really important one.
A lot of those games late in the playoffs, they're all in the same kind of ballpark.
Yeah.
So I'll and no, I get that.
No, but I mean, it's a great way to frame this, right?
This gives it, though, and this is, if we're looking at it from a bigger picture kind of thing, this gives a degree of legitimacy to a club, right? Again, we know how much USL Championship and all that discussion with, it's minor league, which often comes out, right? And those kind of comments. And coming up against the top tier team and perhaps being able to beat them, no matter what team they choose to put out, is still important in competitive play.
Yep, there's no doubt about that in my mind. If as a club and as players, you can't get up for this game, there is a problem. And I have no reason to think, none of us have any reason to think that Rising won't be up for this game. Like, this is huge. If you're these players, like if you're a Panos Armenakas, if you're a Potmar Boy, who knows if he's going to feature or not, if you're a Remi Cabral, where you're still attached to the Colorado Rapids organization, like going out there and scoring or changing games in the attack or having Rocco Rios-Nova make a huge save, those are things that I can say carry major weight in MLS in the context of them looking to USL at all for talent, which happens outside of a few specific clubs very, very infrequently at the MLS level. If you want to cut through all that noise, if you want to save a scouting director a little bit of time, like going out there and scoring or doing something meaningful and memorable against their team is a really, really good way to do that.
Okay. Quick fire, 3 quick keys.
Oh, for me. I thought you were about to toss them my way.
No.
Three quick keys, easy for me to say, from this game. Defensive solidity still for me is absolutely massive. Controlling the game in midfield and at least not getting overrun in that part of the field. Seattle do have some pace. I mean, Danny Musovski was on that lineup against Lou City. He is a very, very good player. Like he could be starting for a few teams in Major League Soccer. He was strong last year for Real Salt Lake, has been good with LAFC and spot minutes and other teams as well. Like controlling the midfield and trying to deny service into Musovski, who will be the best striker on the field regardless of who's out there for Phoenix. That's huge. So I'll toss that out as the first key. Second key, we're looking towards the attack at this point. Going out there and being sharp on the ball. Like you can't afford sloppy turnovers. You can't afford any of those kinds of moments in build-up play or even higher up the field. You can't afford to lose the ball when you don't have the rest defense structure to go and absorb pressure when it comes back at you the other way. Like smart positioning, smart passing, clean touches, all that stuff is basic, but I think it's even more important in games like this. And the third one that I'm still sort of waiting for this Rising team to really show this year, because I think they have the bodies and the service to do it. In a game where you're not going to have the most talented player on the field, odds are, how about a set piece, right? Like almost every single time that Rising take a corner kick, it's John Stenberg peeling towards the front post or the back post, and it's supposed to have the ball in his head. Like you can go and watch the reps. They're clearly targeting Stenberg, who will be one of the biggest aerial threats on the field, regardless of who Seattle have out there. You have good service with Panos Armenakas and Fede Varela. I think those guys are reliable. Juan Carlos Azúcar can whip in a mean ball in a second phase of a set piece or something along those lines. Like getting a little bit of joy on dead balls and certainly controlling them on the defensive end. That's the kind of thing that can take a really kind of gritty, ugly 0-0 or even like a nervy 1-1 or 2-2 and turn it into a 2-1 or a 3-2.
I will say as well, this one from of course, Ramon Chavez, formerly the PHNX Rising pod, did say earlier to me that Rising are going to have to weather the storm early in this game.
Yeah.
Right? That first 20, 30 minutes, especially at Starfire, you're going to have to be able to weather the storm because they're going to come out and be looking for that goal early doors.
No, I think that's entirely fair. Rising have to be confident that when they control the ball, right? Because weathering the storm doesn't necessarily mean bunkering, right? Doesn't necessarily mean playing against the ball. It's not typically Phoenix's MO. They want to control possession, even still going from Juan Guerra to Danny Stone from last year this year. They want to be on the ball, and that ties into the second key that I just gave, right? Take control of the ball. Like you can weather the storm by taking the sting out of the game early and making life really, really difficult for the opposition. I think that's got to be towards the top of the to-do list for Rising.
There's a difference between bunkering and just being smart and being disciplined as well.
Yep. Agreed. Agree with all that.
All right. Here we go.
I was going to do it to you if you weren't going to do it to me.
Of course I was going to do it to your score prediction.
All right. I will say 2-1 Seattle.
You go, oh,
I know.
It's gone 2-1 Seattle.
And I'll say regulation. I'll say it's
okay,
regulation.
in 90.
Yeah.
Rising getting a game done in 90? No.
Stranger things have happened a few times.
No. No. I know that the stat lackey has said, no score predictions for knockouts. Really? We did that for the playoffs because the playoffs were different. No. You've already predicted it's going to penalties, Reese, so you can't comment now. You've said it's going to penalties. I'm agreeing it's going to penalties, though. I think it's going to end 2-2 like that last game for Seattle in the Cup. I think it's going to penalties.
Who's winning in the shootout?
I'm not predicting who's winning the shootout.
Oh, that is so lame. Everyone bully Owain in the chat. That is despicable behavior.
You don't need to encourage them. They do it already.
You're the kind of guy who calls a 2-2 penalty shootout win a draw.
What is a draw?
I know it is because I saw this Twitter discourse and it's incredibly troubling. One thing before we go back to arguing, John Morrissey in the chat, who does great work for us over at Backfield and tons of other places, is the foremost expert on the USL Championship. Phoenix, apparently the third worst on XG on set pieces this year.
There we go. Stats. Perfect.
That blows my mind, truly. To have John Stenberg, to have Lawrence Wycoot should be an asset on set pieces as well. To have, I guess you're not getting a ton of other joy outside of those guys, and maybe Pop Marboy if he's on the field because he is a threat there. That even still, that does surprise me because they have a couple of bodies, they have a couple of trees in the box. Anyway, back to you, Owain. That's cowardly, and I won't stand for it.
Really? You might not be getting a lot of joy on set pieces, but you can get a lot of joy if you go and grab a couple of beers at Valley Tap Room out here. Are you in the East Valley, Joe, or in the West Valley? You're in the East Valley. Yeah. Okay. Have you ever been to Valley Tap Room?
I've never.
They've got 2 locations now. They've got Gilbert, the original location, and they've got one out in Queen Creek as well.
Well.
Plenty of beers, 30 rotating beer handles. Lots of good stuff. And they always have. They got music, food trucks, trivia, bingo, all kinds of stuff always on there. All kinds of fun events. And we've done the trivia there a few times. Max normally likes to take credit if he thinks that he's the one who's won trivia for us because he gets his one question correct in there, Congratulations,
Classic Max.
But we always have a great time when we go over there, of course. And again, 30 rotating beer handles. If you're not into the beers, they've also got wines. They've got sour, cider, mead, all kind of good stuff there. And they do have a bar food menu as well. You can go check them out on socials at Valley Tap Room. And make sure if you go down there to tell them that Max sent you and to put them on Max's tab. Definitely. Remember, he's not here to argue against it. So Max is buying beers, of course.
I love it.
But, when you've got 30-odd beers on there, you can put a pretty good guess that one of those beers is going to be from Arizona's hometown brewery.
Go on.
Would that be Four Peaks?
Go on.
Yeah. Do you enjoy a good Four Peaks there?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Go on. Favorite Four Peaks beer?
I'm honestly more of a cider guy than I am a beer guy.
Okay.
But I don't know. I'm not especially picky.
He's not especially picky.
No, if Max is buying me a drink, I'm going to drink it.
Oh, there we go.
It's not that complicated.
Well, can I interest you in a Bad Birdie Juicy Golden Ale? It's actually very nice.
Yes.
They go down very easily, to be fair. And they
I trust your judgment on that.
Again, right? In this case, okay, it's a golden ale. It has the juiciness of, if you went down like the juicy IPA.
It's in the name.
route, but it's not bitter.
I'm into it.
It's good. It's good stuff, right? It genuinely, and I know people here and people.
Fine. Fine. I'll let you buy me one.
I'll let you buy. Let me buy him one. There we go. Okay, we'll have to do it at some point. We will have to go and grab a beer at some point, but it's actually displaced the WoW for me as the top.
This is big news.
I know, it's huge news.
How did we not lead with this?
I don't know. I mean, clearly that is the lead. When you thought so, Jacob? Sure. He's just saying sure from behind the mic. He's just enjoying this. Remember, because you can grab the Bad Birdie Juicy Golden Ale. It's a collaboration between Four Peaks and Bad Birdie, funnily enough. You can grab it at the 8th Street Pub. You can also get it in cans. I know I've had a few of those over the weekend as well from grocery stores. And be sure to follow them on social at Four Peaks Brew and at Four Peaks Pub to get all the latest on Arizona's favorite hometown brewery. And of course, you must be 21 or older to drink Four Peaks. And of course, please enjoy responsibly. Something we're not going to enjoy responsibly. Let's have a look at the rest of the games of the round of 16 for the US Open Cup.
Baby.
Oh, here we go. It's Open Cup time. Let's go. It's kicking off with Charleston Battery against Atlantic
United.
Can
we do pick by pick, game by game?
Pick by pick. Okay. Go on. You take the first one.
Okay. I'm going to say we have to pick at least 3 upsets of all these. So 3 cup sets. And this is one of them for me. Atlanta United, very weak in MLS right now. Almada, Yakimakis have been out for them. I'm rolling with the Charleston Battery.
Charleston are good. Charleston are good.
How's it feel to be a sheep, Owen, out of curiosity?
No. I thoroughly agree on Charleston Battery being good. New Mexico United aren't going to lose that game.
I would agree. So no cup set there.
Yeah, no, not going with that. Tulsa aren't very good.
Nope. SKC for me. SKC also not very good, but
Sac will pull off the upset. Sacramento over San Jose Earthquakes.
As far as upset picks go, I'm quickly scanning through the rest. Yes, I will also be having that. Thank you.
Yeah. And I mean,
LAFC are going to beat Loudoun.
LAFC to beat Loudoun. Yep. Yeah, I completely agree. India against Detroit. Now this could be, of course, a good game for Rising if that goes 120 minutes and Detroit happen to kick lumps out of India 11. That would be great for Rising.
Yeah, no doubt about that, especially because then you get opponents on the weekend, 2 of the last 3 weekends who played 120 minutes in the Cup. So there's a way that this goes very, very well. I'm going with Indy just solely because of the home field.
Yeah. Tampa Bay over FC Dallas.
My third upset.
That one I was going to say.
My third cup set. I set the number arbitrarily
at 3. On these.
I set it completely randomly at 3. And
we're not referencing the last one because again, you've already said.
I already said maybe no cup set on that one. I would see. Owen, the thing about the Rising one, Tampa Bay, very good team in the Eastern Conference. Dallas, very bad team in MLS. So there's some joy there. The thing about the Seattle Phoenix game, in terms of my prediction, I either get to be right or I get to be glad. So it's kind of a win-win.
But what if they lose in a way that's different to how you described? You could have just said they were going to lose.
You said score prediction.
Yeah, I know.
Which you did not give,
no,
to
I
be
didn't.
clear.
I said 2-2.
Yeah, okay.
That is the match will end 2-2.
You gave a score prediction. It was just super lame.
The match will end 2-2. And then a penalty shootout will take place after
It's crazy
the match
because when you look
ended.
it up online, and it says like 2-2, and then there's parentheses, and there's like a 5 and a 4 next to the other
but those
two.
aren't really part of the
and
score.
one
That's
corresponds to which team actually won the game in advance.
No, they didn't win
in
the
competition.
game. The game ended at 2-2.
The thing is, by every human, normal person definition, they 100% did.
But see, here's the thing. We don't care about your normal human person definition. We care about what the laws of the game say.
The counterpoint, no, we don't.
Yeah, we do. Oh, yeah, we do. We don't have a game without that now. Come on, Joe. I'll tell you what, one little bit of USL news, actually, though.
Let's do it.
On it. Look at El Paso Locomotive hiring a new head coach today.
Brian Clairhot's out. Wilmer Cabrera's in, baby.
Yeah, what do you think about Wilmer Cabrera?
Hopefully for El Paso, going to be a floor raiser for them because I liked a lot of the ideas.
Well, the floor can't go down right now.
That's
it's
the thing,
pretty
right?
dismal in El Paso.
That's the thing, and that was Wilmer Cabrera's thing with RGV, right? They almost never spent on the squad. They had challenges being attached to the Houston Dynamo. Like, there were lots of flaws there. Getting him into this team, you expect to see a pretty against the ball sort of approach. And the hope is that that's enough to scrape a few results and climb out of the basement.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they've got a better squad, I think, than the performances so far have suggested.
I don't disagree.
They're not that bad.
And even if they are, you still rely on the fact that there is not that much difference between the bottom of the conference and the top of the conference in the Western Conference. And there's certainly not a lot of difference between the bottom of the conference and the playoff line, right? Like, this is a parity-filled league. That is American sports in a nutshell. Take it or leave it, like it or not. That is the reality. Your season's not too far gone at this point, about a third of the way through, a little over, I think, in terms of most teams in terms of the games they played. But like you're not too far.
Yeah. They're actually just under in this one. They're on 11 games played. Of course, that bit that you felt out, but only 5 points. 5 points for those 11 games. 1 win.
Yeah, it's been dismal. There's no way to sugarcoat this. The hope is truly that you're not going to make a ton of midseason roster moves, so maybe you can jolt something out of a new tactical identity, and we'll see if it pays off.
We'll see. Of course, they're bottom of the East. Miami bottom. Oh, they're bottom of the West. Yep. Miami bottom of the East. As we've spoken enough about Miami and them being in rock bottom, and a Phoenix team getting a win over a Miami team, and maybe the Arizona Cardinals be getting a win over Miami Dolphins coming up. Yeah, and you can actually take that one in. PHNX, our Cardinals pod, they're teaming up with True Fan Travel for an unforgettable experience in Miami as the Cardinals take on the Dolphins at Hard Rock Stadium. It's a full package, includes everything you want: round-trip flights to Miami, chartered bus transfers, hotel stay at a popular Miami hotel. There's a welcome event. There's meet and greet with Cardinals alumni. There's an all-inclusive tailgate party, round-trip transportation to the game, and, of course, a game ticket to the Cardinals against Dolphins road game. You head over to truefantravel.com to get all the details on that. There are limited tailgate-only and ticket and tailgate packages are going to be released later on. But for now, you can go ahead, put a deposit down on that. They'll hold your spots, that you get that access to flights, hotels, tickets, everything that you could possibly want for that. And if it turns out when the full details come out later on, you can still get that deposit back at the moment. So make sure to head over there if you've got any interest in that. Of course, I often say it's the wrong type of football, but I know that many of you do enjoy it. So make sure to go check that one out. Again, it's at truefantravel.com for all the details. And no, Kevin, Messi will not be there.
We don't know for sure.
Wrong Miami.
We don't know for
sure, to be fair.
I'm not willing to rule it out.
Hang on a minute. Does that stadium have a turf field?
I don't know. I know that's where the Copa America final is. So
yeah, well, it's grass apparently.
Yeah. So
there we go. Maybe again, it will be.
I'm not ruling it out.
Will be.
Although Messi has played on turf this year, so there goes.
That's true. Well, okay. Yeah. But could he get it done at Starfire?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. There we go. Joe with the answer. Well, Joe, thanks for taking the time to come and swing on in.
This was great. It's like old times. I miss it.
It is. This takes us back.
I love it.
Back to recording the old podcast in, what was it, 2019?
On your kitchen table. I think we've upgraded slightly. You have upgraded quite a bit since then. My home studio does not look like this, but no, this has been lovely. It's great.
I remember when we used to record them on Zoom, and you'd have you'd pull your bed sheet over you to make sure the audio quality was good.
Under loft bed quilt and foam situation, which also looked like maybe a post-apocalyptic bunker of some sort, was very real. My bunker game was strong. We've changed slightly since then, but nothing quite as pristine as this.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Joe. Thank you to everyone in the chat for joining us for this one today. Remember, of course, on Wednesday, Rising playing in the Open Cup. We'll have the post-game show after that one. Myself, Jake Anderson, will be breaking down everything you need to know from Starfire Sports Complex up in Tukwila in Washington. But for now, if you want to follow along on Twitter, you can follow the show at PHNX__rising. Double the fun when Max isn't here. You can also follow myself on Twitter at OJEvans18.
So many strays.
Joe, if they want to follow you on Twitter, where are you again?
At Joe C. Lowery.
If his phone has got power, he will be able to see that. You can also follow the stat lackey Reese at Reese11_. Jacob, do you want to give him your actual Twitter handle, given that nope, he just shrugs it off because normally he's used to Max giving some kind of very questionable way of following him. But shout out to Jacob Franklin behind the Mac. And we'll see you on Wednesday. Good night.
We all silly like the mayor.